Kyle MacLachlan. I want to start off by asking, we got the Emmy ballots just a couple of days ago. You're on it for Portlandia for guest actor in a comedy series, and you had 2 episodes to choose to submit, and you chose to submit the 4th of July episode.
Right.
What went into that decision?
Well, I thought it was more interesting, actually, of the 2. I just preferred the performance, I guess, and that was it. Just as simple as that. Just kind of a knee-jerk look at both of them, go, oh, I think this is better. So that was it. Pretty straightforward.
So talking us through this episode, it's where you're buying some fireworks from Mr. Bacon. How did that whole storyline come together? How did you act that out, and what was your favorite part of that episode?
We, it all starts with Fred and Carrie and John, the director, just sort of presenting the idea, and maybe there's a little bit of dialogue or a couple directions they can go in, and it just really is hatched sort of in that moment. So they had this idea that we and myself and Sam Adams, who was the former mayor of Portland, together were on this search for fireworks to have a wonderful display for Portland, for the city, and we end up getting sort of off track, as you noticed. The beauty and also the challenge of working on Portlandia is the fact that Fred has a cache of characters, and so I'm never quite sure which one I'm going to be involved in, whether it's Fred as Fred or Fred as in this case Mr. Bacon. So keeping a straight face while he's doing his character work, incredibly difficult because he's so funny. That was the biggest challenge. The most fun, I think, of the episode is when we got into the dance sequence, and it was one of those where someone just said, hey, maybe we should do a dance to this music and start moving. And then we just started to choreograph this insane little routine, and it expanded from there. I had no idea that it was going to be as elaborate as it was. But it's the kind of thing that happens on the show a lot. You start with an idea and it expands into something that is completely unexpected.
Is it different when you watch the episode and you see how it was edited together, something like that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. The one of the brilliant parts of this is the editing, and they cut away all of the excess, of which there is plenty, and really I think get down to some of the more exceptional moments, and hopefully there are a few of those. But that's really where the show, I think, is really at its best, is when they cut the pieces together. They have such a beautiful way of doing it. And our director, again, is wonderful. John is wonderful at being able to almost edit in his head, and recognize when something is working and when it's not working. And as we do take after take, it gently nudges in the direction that he thinks is going to be the more superior for him to be able to edit.
One thing that's quite different about the scenes you have in that episode, and this might be a bit unfortunate, is that usually Fred and Carrie are together nearly all the time in the show, and in this episode you don't have any of your scenes with Carrie. Was that a bit of a shame?
Yeah, I missed the scenes with Carrie. The problem with working with Carrie is we start laughing all the time, and that the one that I didn't choose, we were in together, and we have a very difficult time. Fred is excellent at maintaining character, but Carrie and I are not so good, and so we often end up not being able to continue the scene because we're cracking each other up, and so maybe they kept us apart for that reason. We just we're misbehaving.
An efficiency decision made by.
Exactly. First and foremost.
Yeah, Carl, could you move back a little bit? It's just your head's getting a bit cut off when you lean in. Yeah.
How about this? Is this better? If I'm like, that's a little too much. No, it's better.
Yeah, no, it's good. Also, you did mention the other episode, S.H.I.E.L.D, that you didn't submit. That you're, and probably wisely, because you're only in pretty much one scene of that episode, but that's such a great scene where it just escalates from making this conspiracy theory video into a conspiracy theory postcard, and like from the 18th century French Napoleonic like stuff. And that was a scene that really so quickly built and built and built with all these little lines, throwaway lines. How was that scene like as an actor to sort of?
That was again one of those that was completely. We went in that direction unexpectedly. The idea that we were going to build this conspiracy theory sort of web thing, and then it just developed. And Carrie and I always seem to align ourselves with each other, and Fred always seems to be the one who is sort of saying, well, no, well, what about this, and stop. So, and that always happens if you work with three. Somebody has to be kind of the naysayer. And Carrie and I, in a couple of these, so we did one a few years ago, Batty Batterson, that developed the same way about a baseball thing, and suddenly it was animated, all completely created after the effect. So this is, so that we went on a tangent, and that tangent just happened to work. It's kind of the same situation in this, is we are often running on something completely different. And one of the rules of improv, of course, is never say no. We just kept following this thread, and it became more and more interesting to the director, John, and we just said, okay, here we go. And that's how it developed. It just came really out of nowhere. And Carrie has the same kind of brain, I guess, as I do. So the more eccentric and silly, the better, which is why we start laughing all the time. And Fred was, on that one, had to be kind of the, well, hold on, slow down. He was kind of the parent. He becomes the parent of the two of us kids.
Yeah, we were chatting with Fred last week, and we were talking about that scene and sort of how just those little lines, like, well, you're getting carried away with it all, and he goes, sort of just little lines like, they didn't take photos, they didn't have cameras back then. You go, well, just Google search, just Google and see.
Yes, you just sort of run right over the top of it. It doesn't make any sense. We're like, no, there'll be a way to make it work.
Yeah,
and which is great. Fred keeps throwing up roadblocks, and we just kind of keep knocking them down. So fun.
Is that ever how Portlandia feels, where you're sort of just throwing these crazy ideas at sort of like scenes and just seeing if they work?
Well, it sort of starts that, you know, for me, improv is something that I've come to later, particularly with Portlandia. So it seems like what we do is we start with some very big ideas and directions, and then we'll continually hone in. So we'll do that scene for the morning. So we'll work on it for a couple of hours, long takes. And then what we'll do is step back, and each of us will sort of say, I sort of felt this was good, John liked this, we like this. And so you'll kind of you'll reevaluate what was done, hopefully remove the chaff, and just kind of stick with the good stuff, you know, and then continue to refine it that way. So you're revisiting old territory, but you're always searching for new directions, and hopefully that fleshes it out enough. In that particular instance, we just kind of went sideways and continued on that journey, and stayed with it, and it had a lot of good stuff in it.
Yeah, and when we spoke with Fred, we asked him, who's your favorite guest character to have on the show, and he mentioned 2 or 3, but the first one he mentioned was you. And one of the reasons he cited was because you've been in it since season 1, so you've had sort of like that ongoing relationship with the show and being able to build the character and work on it. What's that been like, being part of Portlandia since the sort of beginning of the show, and sort of popping in each year for a couple episodes?
Well, as you can imagine, it's a lot of fun. I look forward to it. It's like a little summer vacation for me. When they first started, they reached out to me, and they tried to explain what it was, and I didn't really understand or get what it was they were trying to do. This is way back in the beginning, but I said, sure, I'm game. Whatever you got going on, let's go do it. And it sounded like a fun thing. And obviously, Fred and Carrie are both brilliant at what they do, and so I felt like I was signing on for some unexpected but interesting experience, and that's certainly what it's turned out to be.
And I guess if you were to describe the mayor that you play in the show, how would you describe him? He's so like excited and up for anything almost.
That's pretty much it. I mean, he just has a natural and innate ebullience, I guess, and he's just someone who never gets down, and if he's down, he's only down for a moment. He's always finding an angle. He's always looking at the positive. Obviously loves his city of Portland, and always seems to find a way. You know, he's definitely a doer. You know, and somewhat misdirected in sort of a Mr. Magoo tradition, but ultimately just someone who's a lot of fun to play. And I think that going back to that idea that improv is about saying yes and accepting the next thing, this is pretty much describes Mr. Mayor. In fact, Fred calls me Mr. Mayor even when we're not filming, just because he likes the way it sounds.
That's nice. Now, Kyle, you are all over the Emmy ballot. You're in 3 categories this year. One of them is in the supporting actor in a drama series race, which I was looking at the numbers, and that is the most competitive category at the Emmys this year. There's about 250 plus names in the supporting actor in a drama series.
That's ballot. Not going to get me down. We're going to be positive.
Yeah, it's so much in drama. I guess it's for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. And what was it like joining that show this season?
That was an unexpected pleasure. It was an opportunity to play a character that was different, certainly different for me. And I felt that the journey that character went on was one of the most satisfying that I've done in a long time, and unexpectedly so. It started off obviously as a man who was in a somewhat dire straits, and he has this need to see his daughter, and that's about as much as I knew. As the scripts would roll out and as the character developed, I found him expanding and becoming more and more interesting and more complex. And it allowed me to really do some really deep work emotionally that I hadn't had a chance to do, and I was so grateful for the opportunity and so pleased with the way it went. And the added benefit was the fans of the show were very accepting and very, I think, happy that I was on, and that's always nice to feel that too, because it's a specific show, a specific audience, and you want to make sure that you're staying in the world of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I really felt that I was able to do all of those things.
Yeah, and it was revealed later on that your character was Calvin Zabo or something, and I guess what did that mean? How familiar were you with the Marvel universe and what that meant, sort of being revealed as that character?
I'm not that familiar, actually. I came in and I started to do some research, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to come into this, and whatever they're going to tell me, the writers, curators, Jed Whedon and Marissa, I just said, I'm gonna just go with it, and react to what I get in the scripts each week. If I have some questions, I'll bring them up. And I had a few in the beginning just to understand a little bit about where we were headed. But they deliberately kept things pretty vague. And to their credit, I think the answers were in the material. And if there was ever something that I wasn't quite sure about, I would ask them, and they were very forthcoming. And it seemed to work well that way. I was continually pleased. Every script that I got, every episode that came, I was really happy about, really touched, really excited about the prospect of pulling these scenes apart and making them my own. And they seemed to respond in kind. They were very grateful that for my contributions and my help, and the working situation was ideal.
It's such an expansive sort of world you've entered by being in this show, with all the Marvel films and this Marvel TV show and how they all interlock and interweave with each other. It's a really exciting thing, I'm sure, to be a part of. Do you watch all the Marvel films when they come out now with a bit more like added interest or like investment, since you're sort of now part of that universe?
I do. I'm really fascinated by the way that as you were describing, the way the company has their fingers are everywhere, you know, and they've really sort of taken over. But again, that's, I think, a great deal of that has to do with the fact that the characters are interesting. They're fun to play as an actors, you know. They ask for a little bit more from you. There's not much subtlety there, you know, particularly in the character that I played. So you're able to reach for some really big things. Everything has to be based in truth, you know, but it's fun to be able to really let a character breathe like that, which is what I felt I was able to do with Cal. I miss him. I really do.
Do you have a favorite Marvel film?
Guardians, for me, was it was just wonderful. This is a wonderful storytelling, great characters. The irony in there and the sense of humor is what I think really, for me, that really makes it, you know, and from top to bottom.
Yeah, that was so much fun.
Oh gosh, and you know, to look at it, you'd be like, I remember my first reaction when I heard about it, I was like, I don't think this is really a movie for me. And then I saw it and I said, this is absolutely a movie for me. And I loved it.
Yeah, I'm someone who's not like a big, like, I wasn't really that into the Marvel universe, like comic books and stuff. And I hadn't heard of any of those characters before. Like, I'd heard of Iron Man, I've heard of Spider-Man, I've heard of the Hulk. But, you know, it was something like that. I was like, oh, I'm not sure if I like this. And yeah, it was great.
Yeah, I thought so too. I was one of those nice when a movie surprises you and you get excited by it.
Yeah, I've got some bad news. I did make a mistake. There are 360 supporting actors on the ballot.
Oh, I feel so much better. Thank you for that. That really calmed me down.
Yeah, well, you might have to, like, there might be 359 you're competing against, but everyone else has 359 they're competing against.
Listen, it's good. That means that there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of working actors. You know, there's a lot of work out there that is worth looking at. So there you go. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, it's crazy. The drama supporting actress is the next closest, and that has 254. So
right.
Like more than 100 less.
If only I could qualify for that. Darn it, that's not going to happen.
Oh, anyway. So you're also on the ballot for guest actor in a drama for The Good Wife, for the Old Spice episode, where you went up against, in the show, you went up against Emmy winners Juliana Margulies and Carrie Preston. What was it like to get tangled with them? That was fantastic. I've gone on the show a few times. I know Robert and Michelle King, the writer-creators, since before that, actually, since Injustice, which was years and years ago. And I love them dearly. That character is so much fun to step into those shoes, and to work opposite Carrie Preston is a real treat. She is comedy gold, you know. She is so special, and we have a great dynamic between the two of us. I think we have real good chemistry together, which is, you know, you never really know what you're going to get. The same is true for Juliana. She is just a dream to work with. You know, it's again, it's a character that is a little in the extreme. He's eccentric, and so it's trying to find that thread without sort of getting too crazy. And the only way you really find that is if you do something too crazy and the director says, no, that's too crazy. And you're like, okay, we went too far. But here they've asked us to sort of do this amazing love scene on top of the desk, and the bodice ripping button things coming off and popping and flying everywhere. And Carrie and I we laughed and laughed and laughed because it was so
romance novel that we couldn't help it. And it was a perfect culmination to the way these two characters, the whole sort of flaming passion that they've ignited in each other, and yet so funny. It was a dream.
Yeah, like it's when you look at the 3 shows you've been on, you know, you've got the sort of serialized drama, legal, sort of a bit more gritty but fun. You've got the like superhero show, and then you've got the sketch comedy series. Like you really like got involved in a whole bunch of different stuff this year.
You know, I've been really fortunate. I like variety. I like trying different things. I never know if it's going to work or not, but in these instances, I've been very lucky. And you know, so much of that is due to the people that I work opposite. You know, if you're working with a good group of great writers, wonderful actors, and you have fun, you know, that's really 9/10 of the equation right there. It's really about that. So, you know, nothing is done in a vacuum in any of these mediums, television, film, stage. It's all a group effort. So, you know, I've been super lucky to work with some very, very talented people.
And I guess like something else that's interesting that's in your future is the return of Twin Peaks, which has been a bit like a lot of news up in the air, and it looks like it's back on track now from what I understand. You can tell me if I'm wrong about that. But what are you looking forward to with that, the return of Twin Peaks?
I think first and foremost, well, 2 things actually. One is the return to the character of Dale Cooper, which is probably my favorite character I've ever done. That has the most potential, is very interesting, very complex, a lot of things going on, a lot of unexpected things. And maybe even more importantly than that is that I get to go back to work with David Lynch. And David and I haven't worked together for, oh gosh, a very long time, 25 years maybe. And that in of itself excites me beyond belief. He is truly one of the greatest filmmakers. I love the world he creates. I love the environment that he creates, the working environment. It's so positive. It's so real. It's so rich. That I think more than anything as an actor, I'm so excited to return to. So, yeah, those 2 things, and we'll return. I think filming this is going to commence this fall, sometime. It's still a little bit vague, but sometime this fall.
Yeah, and like, look, it's so interesting because this is a show that won Golden Globes. You won a Golden Globe for it. It got nominated for the Emmys for drama series. You got nominated for the Emmy as well. And there are other nominations and awards along with it as well. But it was 20 plus years ago. Like, we've seen some shows return, like 24 return after 4 years off the air. We've seen Arrested Development return after 7 years off the air. We've seen shows rebooted, like The Odd Couple this year. But this is a show, like, so much has changed in television since it was on TV. And to sort of pick back up with it, it must be really exciting and sort of unprecedented.
I think without question. You know, it's the show when it came on the air, there was nothing like it. And it broke a lot of rules for television, and I think many people who watched that were influenced by it say that it affected them tremendously, and they found their inspiration in that show and what David was able to do on network television. It is a brave new world. You know, social media has changed things tremendously. I remember sitting down even during Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and trying to watch and tweet and follow at the same time, just live tweeting. And that's completely changed the game. And I think this is a show, Twin Peaks, that is going to be very alive on social network. People will be really active with ideas and theories and what's happening. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that is going to integrate and affect the show. It's a completely new world.
I don't even know how like you could like with some like something like a show like True Detective, how you couldn't say that there hasn't been at least some like influence from Twin Peaks in that show, which is a sort of serialized like mystery, solve it like each week, or how are they going to solve the murder and things like that. And you could see yourselves now 20 years later competing against True Detective for Emmys.
Right. Oh, without question, I think the you know, Twin Peaks, there was nothing like it, and there's been nothing like it since then. You know, that I attribute that to the what David Lynch brought to it. You know, it's just a different sensibility, an unexpected sensibility that was so unusual. And I think you got to give credit to ABC at the time for allowing that to happen. You know, because I think we slipped under the radar, I guess. But the new Twin Peaks, or whatever, however you want to refer to it, is going to be, I think, potentially as different and as new and unexpected as the original when it first came on the air. And I say that just because David Lynch is going to be directing them, and who knows, you know, what's going to happen.
It's going to be fun seeing it in the golden age of television with new episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of like changes and Emmy changes, this year you've got now there's a sketch comedy category which Portlandia will be competing in. We've seen a bit of you know, over the past couple of years some changes with things, and it sort of is interesting how for Portlandia you're in this the guest actor category, where we've seen a lot of Saturday Night Live actors competing and competing and supporting as well. But last year we saw Steve Buscemi break through for Portlandia and Fred Armisen break through for Portlandia, the first non-Saturday Night Live sketch performers to get nominated in those acting categories. What was it like to see them nominated? And I guess that gives a bit of hope to you.
It does give a little bit of hope, you know. Both extremely talented. Steve is wonderful, and actually directed Portlandia last year. He's one of my favorites. It's you know, it's great that the Emmys are able to, you know, have a little bit of flexibility there, because I think as TV changes, as what qualifies for what category changes slightly, they're sort of expanding the universe a little bit. I think that's hats off to them for doing that, because I think it helps to keep things fairer, you know, and in what you're looking at. So we'll see. I don't know. We'll see how the mayor fares in that world. I was sort of hoping that a couple of years ago that they might have nominated the mayor for best, you know, musical comedy, because I sang the anthem to Portland, but unfortunately I wasn't nominated for that category. I don't think I qualified. There was no musical accompaniment. Maybe that was it.
Oh, did you write the song?
No, this is the whole story. John gives me the director gives me the he says, "Oh, I'm going to have the music for you," and so I'm saying, "Okay, great," because we're going to shoot the scene later in the day. And he gives me a DVD, and I listen to the music, to the orchestration, and I'm like, "Okay, but where are the words?" And he said, "Oh, there are no words." He said, "You're going to make up the words." And I said, "I'm going to make up a song based upon this music." And he said, "Yeah." And he said, just before we started doing it, he said, "Oh, just think of it as a love letter to Portland." And I said, "Love letter to Portland, love letter to Portland." Okay, that gives me some place to start. So I told the story a couple of times, but I kind of channeled my inner William Shatner. Somehow that seemed to be the right person to go to in my heightened mental state at the time. And so if you watch it, you'll notice there's a few Shatnerisms in there who he happens to be one of my favorites. And so it was sort of a meager homage to William Shatner.
Oh, that's fun. Oh, well, Carl, all the best for all the Emmy categories you're competing in. There's some competitive ones. So, yeah, all the best. And with Portlandia in the future and all the other shows, and with Twin Peaks, we'll talk about that probably in a year's time with you, as that's competing for the Emmys.
Yeah, I look forward to that. That's going to be very interesting. So we'll revisit this again.
Yeah.